I approached the Northwest Permaculture Convergence board. There's a nonprofit that sort of manages the convergence from year to year, and I know the people. I've been involved with the convergence before, and I'm thinking there needs to be a convergence in a suburban neighborhood where people live, and part of that convergence needs to be outreach to people who live in the neighborhood. So from a really early point, that was a core part of the idea, was something that is in a place where people live. It's not at an event center or a retreat center. It's in a neighborhood recreation center. Yeah. And we got bike tours, and we're going to have this park called the Expo. Both of those are free and open to the public.
If you do get one, find one that's still working.
When people start to see the value of home economics, you know, of edible landscaping and growing food at home, and even passive solar retrofits, front yard gardens, when people see this kind of activity, it kind of puts it into their mind, and it's not uncommon when people see these kinds of actions that other people take, then they start thinking about this themselves. So the more people who do this, the more people who apply permaculture to their properties, and that they're visible about doing it, it's out in the open, especially front yard gardens, the more people who do that, the better.
I actually used to live out in the country a little bit more, and decided that River Road was the happening place for doing what I wanted to do, which was permaculture. And so I was going back and forth so much to bike tours and things like this that I thought, you know what, I just need to move here. I've got water catchment. Actually, I've got 7 of the 55-gallon barrels, and it works really nice to be able to have them in all parts of your yard. When you're doing your gardening and you're muddy and your tools are muddy, to be able to just, have a spigot right there and be able to clean up is very convenient. And I also have a larger tank back here, which is covered by the plum tree almost. Well, there's too many of you to move over, but it's actually 1,150 gallons. This is my cold room that I had built a number of years ago. And all this is it was built on the north side, so it doesn't get a lot of direct sun. Heavily insulated. The ventilation on it, it's got a high ventilation over there and a low one over here. And I will open it up. I try to keep it closed, so the cold air comes in at night, and then you close it up as soon as it gets warm. But you can see how heavily insulated this door is. I'm going to show you my root silo here. This has also got a high and a low ventilation system. It's got the top vents here, which are quite small, and then these 2 black pipes on the side there actually go down and keep it well ventilated. I mostly use this for apples. It's very nice to have the concrete because it absorbs the cold from the soil. And these baskets I fill and I layer, and so they're easy to get out and check out, if you've got bad apples, and pull them out and that sort of thing. More
and more people are going to be interested in, I'm convinced, as our economic situation goes further into instability, more people are going to want to know how to grow food, how to compost, how to home economics take care of more needs closer to where they live. So we have those kinds of topics too, but this event being in a suburban neighborhood, the actual theme of the event is greening our neighborhoods with permaculture. So I think most people into permaculture are very tuned into the fact that this is not just growing vegetables. This is a social movement as well. This is a political movement in my mind.
If permaculture is going to have relevance into the future, it's going to have to be something that does more than just address backyard gardens. It's going to be able to have design concepts, be able to apply permaculture design to much larger systems. It's going to have to expand into what is known as social permaculture. When we got this 3-4 years ago, it was largely a big Himalayan blackberry patch. Some of you will be familiar with that sort of a situation. We have a little remnant down there in the corner. Since then we have worked on developing this for a diversity of uses. You see, if you're going to have a big property and you're not going to subdivide it for urban densification, has value in that it mitigates urban sprawl. The more dense the population, the more efficiently you can set up your transportation systems, and the less the greenhouse gases, the less the dependency on hydrocarbon fuels. If you're not going to do that, you know, our position is you're morally obligated then to make other kinds of effective uses of the property. This serves as a hub for many neighborhood gatherings. We have a neighborhood village garden party. Usually about 150 to 200 people come on site. People, we have a cob oven here. People produce pizzas and bake cookies. We have people bring their herbal products. The local beekeepers bring their products. We have entertainment, we have children's program, we have skill sharing, we have site tours, all kinds of things going on. This is a little bit specialized kind of suburban neighborhood because there are these big properties and there is this kind of funky vibration to it. It is not a suburbia of the sort that has emerged post-World War in most parts of the country. But the model we're building here is one that would be replicable in many ways to places like some of these post-industrial cities. Detroit is an example. And there are people who've come through here from Detroit who've gone back to Detroit and are now working on this in the Brightmoor neighborhood.
I was volunteered to be on the board of the River Road Community Organization, which is a neighborhood association, very active. And that came because Ravi and I were working on a concept of the whole system of a neighborhood as a food system. And the model right now, the model in America, is everybody has their private property, their little backyard garden, if any garden at all, and their own personal car. And when they need food, they drive to the grocery store and they spend their life energy going to work to get the money to pay for their little private yard and their private car. And the vision that Ravi and I have been developing is what would it look like to have a food system that integrates across a whole neighborhood. We're designing a course right now to design a food forest along the river here. It's on public property, so if you start working in public property gardens, parks, bigger school gardens, that's when you start needing the social permaculture to organize people, to get people's buy-in, to do education programs, to change people's culture around food. I see us as in the business of putting models in place that'll give us the opportunity to also learn and test our ideas. So that's a lot of what we're doing in the River Road neighborhood. And, you know, it can't all be done in a centralized way. It's got to be decentralized and catch on.
Then part of the Green Neighborhood Summit is going to be caucus time, where people will be sitting around a table. Hopefully it's a big table. And people are going to be sharing their stories about what they're doing in their neighborhoods. And I know some of the people who are going to be showing up, And there's going to be awesome stories about people being really creative, about alleys, about unused right-of-ways, food being grown in public places. There's a lot of creative stories that we want to hear about. So we want more people to know about this.
The backstory is that there are a bunch of people who've been involved in urban planning and city planning in that neighborhood for 30 years. And when Seattle's Department of Neighborhoods opened up their planning process to communities, they decided to go with neighborhood planning, and they opened it up in a big way that anybody who wanted to have a say in their neighborhood came out. And so people have been working in that neighborhood for that many years to influence it and get parks and green spaces. There were very few places people could walk in the green on that hill, and they worked towards establishing a future park in that area, including an arboretum on the hillside. So one of my student mates in our permaculture design class was involved in that process. He had been involved in the playground, in planting trees in the area, and he knew that there was a possibility of getting access to that land. So when we started our permaculture design class project, it was sort of theoretical, yet there was this place on the map that we knew could have a little place in. And then once our project came to fruition on the page, then we started to look into a city process. How do we talk to the city? How do we get access to the land? How do we get some funding? And so these were the neighborhood activists that had been working for 25 to 30 years that laid the groundwork for us. And knowing that they existed and knowing that there was a policy and process around that really helped us.
Some of the work that I do in Portland, I work with a nonprofit called the City Repair Project. And that's an organization that has a transition type role. You know, their role is to help communities, neighborhoods transition in the ways that they envision or imagine transitioning. One of the functions that City Repair plays in supporting communities and groups of neighbors in the city of Portland is to help them bring their visions to life and to help even plant the seed of what's possible. And I think what limits most people in affecting change where they live is the idea that it's not possible. That we've kind of have this latency, and a lot of that is stemming from having a lot of power taken away from us for creating the kinds of places that we live and the kind of education that we want to have. And City Repair says, yes, you can. You actually do have that power. You actually do have that capacity. And in some cases, you need to reclaim it. And in some cases, you have to bend the rules a little bit to be able to do that. But as time has shown, that just brings it back to where it needs to be.
The more people who get the idea that permaculture can't be a niche of sort of people meeting off in some kind of private place. You know, it really needs to get out into public. I'd like to think the beginning of something that has enormous potential, because being healthy, safe, secure is a core ideal of everybody. And neighborhood programs are just ideally placed, you know, to help get this kind of more permaculture style sort of actions that people can take, you know, out into the neighborhood.